is always going to be who's on the hot seat. So, Danny, I'm going to start with you. When we're asked to come up with this, when we're on CBS Sports HQ and we're going to be rolling through, what do you think the first name is for the hot seat conversation?
Billy Napier, Florida, because of the brand. Like I think a lot of people.
That's the combination of pressure plus job that I think
Yes.
makes him the beginning of the conversation.
And the brand, and it's Florida, and all those things. It's the name I had 3 at the top of the list. And it's the same one you guys had that are all in the same conversation. I had Billy Napier, I had Sam Pittman at Arkansas, and I had Dave Aranda at Baylor. Yep. Those were the top 3. And I was trying to because we always like to put things in tiers or categories. I was trying to think of anybody else at the P4, Power 4 level that I would put in that group. And I don't know if anybody else is in that category of like definitively hot seat where if they don't win, they're done. Did you have anybody to add?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's our good old friends, the Cal Golden Bears, with a passionate fan base. But if Justin Wilcox, and this is again where I'm going against what I think will happen, I think Cal's going to have a good season, or at least they're not going to jump into the ACC and sink to the bottom. If they did, there have been off seasons before where we've been like, so what's Cal going to do with Justin Wilcox? And then brings up those larger questions of like, well, what does Cal want to do with Justin Wilcox? And so without getting too much into that, it was one of the only other names, maybe Scott Satterfield at Cincinnati. Like if he goes 3-9 again, or is Cincinnati going to want to make a pivot there?
They gave him a really big contract. I would be shocked.
Okay.
Yeah, I had him at the next category of then if they don't win this year, then they're in this category. Like they're 1 year away from really being on the hot seat.
What about Tony Elliott?
So I had a category for him, and it's the same as Clark Lee, unfortunately. Like does anybody care yet?
Yeah.
It's a fair question. I mean, they had the shooting there, which made his tenure really, really difficult. I didn't have him in the same category as Napier, Pittman, and Aranda.
All right, well, let's start with Napier, Pittman, and Aranda. But what do you think the path is for things to go? Let's start Sunnyside first. What's the path for things to go well for Billy Napier? Because sometimes, hello, Neil Brown, you coach yourself right off the hot seat and everything not necessarily fine, but things move forward positively. What's the path for Billy Napier to be able to be able to change the tenor around his coaching tenure?
Sure. I mean, they could start 5-0 in theory. I mean, they're not a massive underdog against Miami. Then they get Samford at home. They get A&M at home. They go to Mississippi State, which I think is clearly the second worst SEC team, and probably closer to Vandy than they are to the third worst SEC team. And then they come back and they host host UCF off a bye. I mean, it's not crazy to think that Florida could start 5-0. It's not probable, but it's possible. They kind of have to because the next stretch is at Tennessee, host Kentucky, Georgia neutral, at Texas, host LSU, host Ole Miss, at Florida State. But if you're good enough to go 5-0 to start, then recruiting momentum should be off the charts. Florida's done a really good job still, like forming relationships with players this summer. I think they're out relationshiping basically everybody in the state right now. Now, it all falls apart clearly if they don't win, but they're still putting in the effort like they're going to be around. And maybe if the AD doesn't get fired, if they start fast, they can steal one or two of those down the stretch. I mean, we just talked about LSU's pathetic depth on the D-line. You get LSU late in the swamp. There's some possibility that LSU's defense totally sucks by that point. What if Ole Miss? What if they don't meet expectations and they don't have the good cohesiveness because it's a team of mercenaries built through the transfer portal? Like, that is possible. Honestly, the same thing applies to FSU. Their team mostly built via the portal. So I could see it. It's their win total's what? 4.5 juice over, 5 juice under.
Yeah.
You win a couple extra coin flips, you go 7-5, you're safe.
Loading up on Florida overs. What could go wrong?
Right.
Let's go. I mean, Danny, do you think that? I mean, because you detailed it, I also could see a 2-3 start. You know?
Right.
Like I
Right.
could see.
I could see us laughing at the halftime of the Samford game going, oh, look, it's 35-32. And they're in a dogfight with Samford. Haven't we seen that story before?
I mean, UCF won the last time those two teams played.
Right. I think a lot of this has to do clearly the record, but also like I think the other savior or potential savior is DJ Lagway. Like, what if he comes out? Because I wonder, because we're getting more like the NFL. We've seen coaches make changes in the NFL because we assume they're trying to save their jobs. Does he roll out Graham Mertz first, and then if it's 2-3, then you roll out Lagway and try to salvage your job that way? Do you roll him out from the beginning? But if they're on to something, he's good as he looked in the spring game, that could be what saves his job too. Because then you're like, oh, okay, there's hope for the future. We finally have a guy who can be a difference maker, not just a Jag plus like Graham Mertz.
Yeah, Zombie Gators win against LSU late behind DJ Lagway.
Right.
Yeah,
Just
all
pull off some win late. Bud, you said 7-5 saves your job. Does 6-6? Like, is that? And I guess it totally depends on who you win against, but
I think it probably does. I mean, the expectation is like 4.75, so 4-8 or 5-7. That's still over expectation.
Right
Now,
but do you think the
Probably
Florida
could be
fans
the
understand that? I mean, do you think that's what I don't think so either. Like, I almost look and say, 6-6, he's toast no matter who they win, because it's just the program. But I think there has been a lot of coverage of how hard the schedule is. I just don't know if it matters.
at 6-6, do you feel the need to fire Scott Strickland? I don't know. Are you going to let Scott Strickland make the move and then make the subsequent hire? Again, I don't know. Florida's president does really seem to care about athletics based on his comments. So
could you, I mean, look, if could you see, and we have seen this before, the scenario where a university president or chancellor that really cares about athletics does fire an athletic director and does not make a hire until, like, fire the athletic director and then like oversee the search yourself, coach gets fired, then worry about the athletic director later. I mean, there have been proactive presidents that do not follow that order of operations the way that it is traditionally done, which then sets things up bad for the coach that just got hired, because then an athletic director gets hired that didn't hire you. That's always an interesting situation moving forward. We'll be I think 6-6 is probably safe. But again, with that, you need to have one like good one or quarterback encouragement. I think 7-5, no matter what the wins are, given the strength of the schedule and the expectations, should be good. I think 5-7 might be. I don't know if there's a 5-7 scenario that you're really selling unless you've got unless you know that your recruiting class is going to be held together, and that's what it's all going to be hinging on. And look, Florida has not done a great job of closing. Fair?
Yeah.
In recruiting, Like, I mean, you catch a lot of flips when we're having Cover 3 podcasts in December, leading up to the early signing period. Catch a lot like, hey, so and so flipped from Florida.
Only staff in Florida that I really trust to close is Miami.
Yeah,
like Florida State and Florida have had some really embarrassing misses and just flops on signing day. So yeah, they have definitely missed.
All right, let's go.
You know what else should matter? One last thing.
Of course.
How do the games look? Like, they might lose.
Yeah.
But if they play late in the season, if they're competitive with Georgia, Texas, like those last 5 games, that should mean a lot. Because to me, that's what we never look at is like, is the team still bought in? Are they still, are they still buying into what Billy Napier is selling? Are they competitive? Are they bought in? So I think that one will have to wait and be seen. But I totally agree with Bud, though, on the first 5 games. You could see it. I mean, Florida probably has one of the more wider variances of what could happen this season, even though the win total is so low, just because of those first 5 games. It's going to be fascinating.
I do think there's a cap. Like the variance.
Oh yeah, how high it could go. Yeah,
yeah. The variance doesn't go all the way to the other. The tail doesn't go all the way to the other end of the chart. All right, what about Sam Pittman at Arkansas? But look, it was too easy when they hired Bobby Petrino as offensive coordinator I mean, the entire college football community was like, Sam, you realize what's happening right now, right? They just hired the interim coach who can take over after a midseason firing. Is there a, Danny, I'll give you the same thing that I gave Bud. Is there a path for Sam Pittman to be able to make it through?
I'll be shocked if he survives. You know, looking at the schedule, I mean, find me 5 wins that are guaranteed. It's hard. Maybe 6. I don't know. I just don't see a scenario unless Taylor Green comes in and balls out. But KJ Jefferson was really good for them, and they never really maximized that. I just thinking that. Tell me, I mean, Arkansas fans might not like it, but in the new college football economy, I just wonder where they're gonna fall. And it's probably closer to somewhere where bowl eligibility, 7 wins, 8 wins should be celebrated. And I don't know if that's not going to happen too frequently.
I mean, they're very like Pittsburgh Pirates, Florida Marlins,
Yeah.
of the SEC. It's like, cool, collect the check, take the losses, 0 chance to do anything in this conference. Like we had the debate last year. It's like if Arkansas fans want to enjoy their football season, they should go to the Big 12. They would be very competitive, I believe, in the Big 12. They wouldn't be the favorite to win it, but like
They'd be top 5.
Yeah, and I also think all these losses eventually hurt recruiting. And if you just stack some wins, people like to go to a team that actually wins games. So they would be, I think they would start out top half. And I agree. I think they would be one of the perennial favorites to win the Big 12, but they're not in the Big 12. And they do play the defending Big 12 runner-up early in the season at Oklahoma State, which, I'm sure both teams will be pretty motivated for that one.
Is that going to be a good game?
I mean, I would favor Oklahoma State, but Oklahoma State doesn't have overwhelming talent.
Right.
So, and then you get UAB at home, fine. At Auburn, A&M at a neutral site, which is, I believe, still in Dallas, right? In the Dome.
Mm-hmm.
Host Tennessee, host LSU. October 19th, we'll probably know, right? Because I think Arkansas, whether it should or not, does sort of see itself on that Tennessee, LSU, Arkansas, and A&M level, which is not justified by results. But I think, fandom is oftentimes not really rational. If you're getting handled by those teams against which you've been somewhat competitive in some years, usually not all at once, it's probably done, right? And then when's the bye here? No, it's actually after Tennessee. So. And we get another one after you host Ole Miss. Also, like, doesn't it depend on who you think you can go get? Or does it not matter because you need to restart the hype clock so that fans keep buying season tickets?
Arkansas may find itself, and look, you hinted at this before the show. Arkansas may find itself in a situation where, given the quality of jobs that are open, Arkansas might be one of the best jobs available. And if you are looking to get one of the best candidates available, then Arkansas, as an SEC school, I mean, you're talking about selling the hype to sell the tickets. What about selling the candidates? They'd be like, hey, look, we think that you can do this, and then you go out there and you get yourself a quality coach.
I don't know that they would take it, but there's some Big 12 guys, there's some G5 guys like a Chadwell or Summerall, who I think are way better coaches than Sam Pittman is. I had Sam Pittman dead last in my coaching rankings this year. I haven't seen anything from him that makes me believe he's a good football coach. And if he's not a play caller, you better nail the hires and do the CEO thing. And he's flopped on the hires as far as the coordinators several times in some cases. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Take the check, take the losses.
You mentioned the Big 12 earlier as a spot where Arkansas would have been a little bit more competitive and a little bit more comfortable. What about Dave Aranda at Baylor? Because y'all both mentioned him, and that was a miss by me. I forgot that not only did things look so bleak at the end of last year, and he also has messed up some hires, but also that what are you really excited? Like, where do you think Baylor's going to be this year? That sort of situation.
They return an awful lot. So if you return an awful lot off a bad team, that's usually not good. But he's talked about how he's revamped their NIL. He's talked about some of the play calling stuff. He's going to be more involved in the defense. Which of these games can't they win? Charleston State, that's a dub. At Utah, that's really tough, actually. But Utah does have a habit of starting really slowly at times.
Yeah, we're starting their own quarterback,
Right. Yeah. Which this year, hopefully not, given that Cam Rising's back for like year 11. Hosting Air Force at Colorado, hosting BYU at Iowa State, at Texas Tech, hosting Oklahoma State, hosting TCU, at the Mountaineers, at Houston, which is really not a crazy road trip, and then hosting Kansas. I mean, it's not an easy schedule, but I don't know. I mean, is 7-5 really impossible to see here? It's not probable, but it is certainly possible that they could. I just think these Big 12 teams are so jumbled up, and it's hard to really say like any team is more than a touchdown better than the other, with a couple exceptions.
You know why you probably get fired
Why?
is because other programs in the Big 12 have elevated right past you and you had it at the top. I'm thinking Kansas State.
Mm.
Like in Kansas State may have always been in that conversation, but other programs, TCU in the state has already surpassed you. And I know they didn't have a great year last year, but they were in the championship game. Like all of this is not helping your case. Plus, it seems like it's a mess. Like it just feels off.
It's one of the jobs and one of the spots where it feels like the sport changed, and all of a sudden Dave Aranda was like, "Oh no." Not that Dave Aranda is, you mentioned he says they fixed the NIL, but he certainly seemed, when things went wide open, when NIL was all above board, when the transfer portal was, wide open, it seemed like he was looking around and almost like, this is not what I got into. When I took this job after the 2019 season, college football was different. I mean, sure, you could, have the transfer portal. Transfer portal had been around for about 3 years, but man, he's such a coach, right? It's almost like he's given that like, oh, I don't want to. This is not what I came here to play. Do y'all ever get that sense?
Yes, I don't know that he was super well set up to do the NIL thing for sure, and the portal thing. I think he was trying to win with culture. It feels sort of Dave Clawson-y, except I don't think Baylor is broke.
Well, listen, Dave Clawson's maintained the same core staff. Dave Aranda has like exploded the staff. How do you maintain culture when you keep cycling in all these new coaches? So it's a difficult proposition. Do you think, Danny, that there's a path for Dave Aranda to be able to pull this all together? Is it the Big 12 coin flip scenario like Bud laid out?
Yeah. I mean, it's the most competitive conference out there. Daquan Finn, if he's the playmaker, that he was in the MAC, if he comes in there, can he build a wagon at Baylor? I don't know. I think when we look at these games, I don't know. I think out of these three, I think Billy Napier has the best chance to survive. I think Pittman and Aranda almost feel like formalities. Like they need almost Hail Marys to save their jobs.
Like you'd rank it Napier, Aranda, Pittman in terms of likelihood of surviving?
Yes.
I think I agree. This is really hard to put odds on because
I would do Napier, Aranda, Pittman.
Yes.
Yeah,
agreed. Yeah.
Okay. Whew. What a season in Fayetteville. Can't wait.
Right.